My adoptive parents always turned my past into a punchline. To them I came from nowhere. A ghost, a blank page they had been generous enough to write on. It was a joke they loved to repeat at family dinners, their laughter always echoing over my silence as they recounted the story of how they'd so charitably saved the girl with no history. But they were wrong. My past wasn't a joke. It was a crime scene. The photograph I found in their attic wasn't just a memory. It was a time bomb, one that had been ticking for 20 years, and it was about to expose a secret so dark, they would have done anything to keep it buried. Its detonation would happen in just 72 hours, and in the rubble, I would have to find out who I truly was. My name is Amara, and this is the story of how I stopped being their punchline and started becoming a cold, hard truth. Before I continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, comment below, and leave your like. Helps a lot. Section 1. The silence. To understand the explosion, you have to understand the suffocating silence that came before it. On the surface, my life was a perfect portrait of modern post-racial harmony. At least, that's the narrative my parents, Sarah and Michael, sold to themselves and everyone else. They were a well-off white couple from a pristine leafy suburb, the kind of people who were pillars of their community, known for their performative charity and loud progressive politics. And I was their crowning achievement, the black girl they had saved, their living, breathing proof of virtue. I never doubted that they loved me, but their love was like a thick cashmere blanket on a blistering summer night. It was warm and expensive, but it was suffocating, woven with invisible threads of expectation and control. It was a love that demanded I be perpetually grateful, perpetually happy, the perfect, assimilated daughter who didn't rock the boat by asking too many questions. The problem was, questions were the very fabric of my being. Where did I get my eyes shaped like almonds? Why did my hair coil into such tight, defiant springs? Who did I look like? For Sarah and Michael, the answers were infuriatingly simple because, to them, they didn't exist. "You came from us, sweetie," Sarah would say, patting my hand with a dismissive smile. "Your life began the day we brought you home." It was meant to sound poetic, but it was a lie designed to erase a life that began before them. Their erasure wasn't just passive. It was an active, ongoing project. My heritage became the butt of their jokes. At a dinner party, a guest once asked about my ancestry. Before I could even open my mouth, Michael laughed and said, "We like to think of her as a limited edition. No backstory, just premium features." The table chuckled politely. Later that week, a news report about West Africa came on, and he nudged me. "Look, Amara, maybe that's your long-lost kingdom. Should we send them a letter?" When I didn't tan as easily as they did on vacation, Sarah would laugh and say, "Well, you can't have everything, even with those premium jeans." They weren't just jokes. They were little digs, constant, painful reminders that I was other, that my blackness was a curious novelty in their white world, a story they told to prove how open-minded they were. Growing up, I learned to swallow the bitter sting of those words and smile along. I did love them. They had given me everything money could buy. A beautiful home, a prestigious education, a life of insulated comfort. To question them felt like an act of profound betrayal. How could I resent the same people who tucked me in at night, who threw lavish birthday parties for me, who gave me everything I ever wanted, except the one thing I desperately needed, the truth? So I played my part. I was Amara Waters, the happy-go-lucky daughter of Sarah and Michael. But alone in my room, I'd stare at my reflection and see a stranger looking back at me, a collection of features with no origin point. That feeling of being untethered was a dull, constant ache in my chest, a phantom limb of a life I never knew. I felt like a book with the first chapter violently ripped out. Without that beginning, how could I ever really understand my own story? The desire to know was a fire I had banked for years, but it never truly went out. All it needed was a little oxygen. And it was about to get a whole gallon of gasoline. Section 2. The discovery. It happened on a Tuesday during my fall break from college. A relentless, gloomy rain was hammering against the windows of our sprawling Tudor home, making the world outside feel like a watercolor painting left out in a storm. Sarah had asked me to find an old box of her college memorabilia from the attic for an upcoming alumni event. The attic was my parents' personal museum of forgotten things, a space that smelled deeply of cedar, dust, and the slow, patient decay of time. Boxes were stacked floor to ceiling, each meticulously labeled in my mother's perfect looping script. Christmas ornaments 1995 to 2005, Michael's law school books, Amara's baby clothes. I paused at that last one, a faint smile touching my lips. It was proof, at least, that I was once a baby, that I hadn't just materialized in their lives fully formed. The box Sarah wanted was buried in a far corner behind a mountain of seasonal decorations. As I wrestled it free, my elbow knocked over a smaller, unmarked cardboard box tucked away in the shadows. It was sealed with a single strip of yellowed tape that had grown brittle with age. There was no label, no name, no hint of its contents. It was completely anonymous, and my curiosity, that old, familiar ghost, rose up inside me. I reasoned that if it were truly important, it would have a label. With a flick of my fingernail, I peeled back the tape. The cardboard gave way with a soft sigh. Inside was a collection of my dad's old college things, a tattered university sweatshirt, a few faded textbooks on corporate law, a stack of concert ticket stubs. I was about to close it, disappointed, when my fingers brushed against something stiff and glossy at the very bottom. Photograph lying face down. I turned it over. In an instant, the world tilted on its axis. My breath caught in my throat, a sudden sharp vacuum in my chest. It wasn't a picture of my parents. It was a photograph of a young black woman, her face luminous with a tired but deeply radiant smile. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with high cheekbones, a strong jawline, and the exact same almond-shaped eyes that stared back at me in the mirror every single day. In her arms, she was holding a newborn baby, swaddled in a standard-issue white hospital blanket. The baby was tiny, a wrinkled, fragile thing, but there was no mistaking it. That was me. Had to be. I didn't just think it. I knew it in my gut, in the marrow of my bones. This was her. My mother.my hands began to tremble so violently the image blurred. I sank to the dusty attic floor, the rain pounding on the roof like a frantic drumbeat counting down to something terrible. The woman in the photo looked so proud, so incandescently full of love. This was not the face of a woman who had simply given her child away, the vague and painless story my parents had always sold me. This was the face of a mother. My heart hammering against my ribs, I looked closer, my eyes scanning every detail. The hospital blanket had a small, embroidered logo near the edge. It was faded, but I could just make out an image of a bell and two letters, C and H. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and dawning horror. My parents always told me my adoption was a closed record, handled by an agency that went out of business years ago. They said there were no photos, no records, no names. Nothing. But here it was. Photograph. Face. Clue. Hidden away in a box of my father's old junk, as if someone wanted it forgotten, but couldn't quite bring themselves to destroy it. Who hid this? And why? In that moment, the dull ache I had lived with my whole life sharpened into a piercing, urgent pain. The silence was broken. The bomb was now live. Section 3. The first 24 hours. The unraveling begins. I must have sat on that dusty floor for an hour, maybe more, just staring at the photograph. It felt like holding a ghost in my hands, a life I was supposed to have. Eventually, the paralyzing shock receded, replaced by a cold, hard wave of resolve. I needed answers. I walked downstairs, the photo clutched in my hand like a shield, my footsteps unnaturally loud in the quiet house. My parents were in the living room, reading by the fire, a perfect picture of domestic bliss that now felt like a grotesque parody. "There you are, honey," Sarah said, looking up with a warm smile. "Did you find the box?" I didn't answer her. I just walked over and held out the photograph, my hand steady despite the storm inside me. "I found this too," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Who is she?" The change in them was instant and terrifying. It was like watching two masks shatter at the exact same moment. Michael's face went completely pale, a stark, ashen white. Sarah's smile vanished, her lips pulling into a thin line as a flicker of pure, unadulterated panic flashed in her eyes. She snatched the photo from my hand, her movements jerky and defensive. "Where did you get this?" she demanded, her voice tight, all the warmth gone. "In a box. In the attic. It was with Dad's old things." "Who is she, Mom?" I pressed, my voice gaining strength with every beat of my furious heart. "It's nothing," she said, turning her back to me as if to hide her expression. "It's just an old magazine clipping I saved. From years ago, when we were first thinking about adoption. I thought it was a beautiful picture, that's all." "A magazine clipping," I repeated, disbelief and rage rising in my throat like bile. "It was at the bottom of a box of Dad's things. Feels like a real photograph. Mom, look at her. She looks like me." "Don't be ridiculous, Amara," Michael cut in, his voice a low growl I'd never heard before. I could hear the tremor in it, a desperate attempt to sound authoritative. "Your mother told you what it is. Now drop it. Drop it." The two words hung in the suddenly silent room, an undisguised threat. But their reaction, their sheer, naked terror, told me everything I needed to know. They were lying. The panic in their eyes was my confirmation. This wasn't a fantasy. This was a secret. And for the first time in my life, I felt a strange and terrifying surge of power. I knew something they were desperate to keep hidden. I retreated to my room and locked the door, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The 72-hour countdown was on. My first move, get the evidence back. I waited until I heard them leave for a pre-planned dinner with friends, their voices strained and falsely cheerful. I snuck into their master bedroom and found the photo hidden under a pile of scarves in Sarah's nightstand drawer. Back in the safety of my room, I scanned it into my laptop at the highest resolution possible. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get a clear image. Zooming in on the crisp digital file, I stared at the logo on the blanket. It was still blurry, but I could see the letters more clearly now. It wasn't PCH. It looked like CCH. City Central Hospital. Community Care Hospital. It was a real lead, a thread in the darkness. Then a memory surfaced. My best friend Chloe had given me a DNA testing kit for my 19th birthday. It was a gag gift. "Find your long-lost royal family," she'd laughed. I'd laughed with her and tossed it in a drawer, never once thinking I would actually use it. My parents had been vehemently against the idea. "It's a gimmick, honey," Michael had said with a dismissive wave. "And a violation of privacy. Besides, your family is right here." Now I understood their fierce opposition. They weren't protecting me. They were protecting their secret. I found the kit buried under old notebooks, swabbed my cheek with a trembling hand, and sealed the vial. Driving to the post office through the driving rain, I felt a tremor of fear and exhilaration. As the package disappeared into the big blue mailbox, I knew there was no going back. I had just declared a quiet war on my entire life. Back in my room, I turned to the vast, anonymous world of the internet. I joined several online forums for adoptees searching for their birth families. With a deep breath, I posted a tightly cropped picture of the woman's face. "Does anyone recognize this woman?" I wrote. "I believe she may have given birth in the Philadelphia area around 20 years ago." I felt a pang of guilt, putting this beautiful stranger's face on public display. But the need to know was an all-consuming fire. As I hit the post button, the clock on my screen read 11:59 p.m. Day 1 was over. The seeds were planted. Now I just had to wait and see what would grow in the dark. Section 4. The next 48 hours, the cracks widen. The next day, the house was a pressure cooker of unspoken anxiety. The weather was gray and miserable, a perfect reflection of the mood inside. My parents were attempting a desperate pantomime of normalcy. Sarah made my favorite pancakes for breakfast, but her hands trembled so much she spilled the batter on the stove. Michael tried to engage me in a loud, boisterous conversation about sports, but his eyes kept darting towards me, filled with a fearful scrutiny. They were watching my every move. I spent most of the day locked in my room, a digital ghost haunting the forum pages, hitting refresh again and again. For hours there was nothing but a few good luck, and hope you find her comments. Then, around 3 p.m., a new comment appeared from a user named GenealogyGen. She wrote, "That hospital blanket is incredibly familiar. My aunt was a nurse in the 90s at a hospital that used that exact design on their blankets and uniforms. It was City Central Hospital on the west side. It was a massive facility, but it was shut down about 10 years ago after some legal and financial troubles." My breath hitched. City Central Hospital. Real place. Name. My hands flew across the keyboard. I fell down a digital rabbit hole, digging up old news articles and city records about City Central. I found archives of the local paper, reading about its history. It delivered thousands of babies a year, but I also found a series of articles about a budget crisis and a lawsuit in the late 90s involving mismanagement. My heart pounded as I scanned the article, which mentioned the hospital's legal counsel, a firm named Miller, Dane and Associates. The name meant nothing to me. It was just a place. But it was my place. If you're still here with me, don't forget to subscribe, activate notifications, leave your like, and share this video with someone. Downstairs, my parents' anxiety was reaching a fever pitch. Around dinner time, the Wi-Fi suddenly went out. "Oh darn," Michael said with the worst acting I'd ever seen. "Must be the storm finally knocking it out." I knew he'd unplugged the router from his office. A few minutes later, Sarah came to my door. "I was thinking," she said, her voice painfully bright, "why don't we get away for a few days? Just the three of us. Drive up to the cabin in the mountains. No phones, no internet." They were trying to cut me off, to isolate me and contain the fallout. Their escalating panic was just more fuel for my fire. I declined, faking a migraine, and tethered my laptop to my phone's hotspot. The slow connection made every search feel more urgent. The hours ticked by, and a sliver of doubt began to creep in. What if this was all a wild goose chase, a fantasy woven from a single photograph? Exhausted, I decided to check my email one last time before giving up for the night. And there it was. An email with the subject line, "Your DNA results are ready." My blood ran cold. It was way too soon. The website had said it could take weeks, but I'd paid an exorbitant fee for the express service, a desperate gamble. With a trembling finger I clicked the link. I scrolled right past the ethnicity estimates, my heart lodged in my throat, down to the section marked DNA relatives. And then I saw it. At the very top of the list, under the heading Immediate Family, was a name. Eleanor Vance. Confidence. Extremely high. Predicted relationship. Parent/child. Eleanor Vance. I clicked on her profile. She had opted to allow matches to see her public information. Her profile picture showed a woman in her late 40s, with the same almond eyes, now etched with a profound sadness, but her smile was gentle and kind. It was her. Unmistakably. The woman from the photo, 20 years later. Her profile included a short, heartbreaking bio. Hoping to find my daughter Nia. She was born on October 12 and disappeared from City Central Hospital 2 days later. They told me I was crazy. But I will never stop searching. I will never lose hope. Nia. My name was Nia. I wasn't a blank page. Had a name. I had a birthday. And I had a mother who was actively looking for me. I wasn't given away. I was taken. I clicked on the link to her public social media page. Her entire feed was a memorial to a ghost, a shrine to me. Every single year on my birthday, October 12th, she posted that same hospital photograph. "Happy 20th birthday to my sweet Nia," the most recent post read. "Wherever you are, know that your mother loves you more than life itself and will never, ever stop looking for you." She had been searching for me, out in the open, for 2 decades. The world dissolved into a blur of tears. I wasn't adopted. I was stolen. Kidnapped. My entire life, every memory, every birthday party, every "I love you," was built on a foundation of lies and a horrific crime. My parents hadn't saved me. They were my kidnappers. And the jokes, those cruel, relentless jokes about my past, it wasn't just insensitivity. It was a calculated, sadistic strategy to keep me from ever looking. To make me believe I came from nowhere, so I would never find my way back to somewhere. The 48-hour mark had passed. I had found the truth. But the truth was a monster. Section 5. The final 24 hours, the collision. I didn't sleep. The night was a blur of grief and rage as I sat at my desk, scrolling through 20 years of Eleanor's life. I read every post, every shared memory, every message of hope. I learned about her love for gardening, her favorite books, the jazz music she listened to. I learned about my father, David, a musician she had loved. I pieced together the life that should have been mine from the digital fragments of her enduring love and unending grief. As dawn broke, painting the sky in pale, fragile colors, a cold, righteous anger settled in my bones. I knew what I had to do. I opened my email and began typing a message to Eleanor Vance. "My name is Amara Waters," I wrote, my fingers flying across the keys. "But I believe I am your daughter, Nia. I'm 20 years old and my birthday is October 12th. I recently found a photograph, the same one you post every year, hidden in my adoptive parents' attic. I just received my DNA results, and you were listed as my mother. I think my entire life has been a lie." I attached the high-resolution scan of the photograph and a current picture of myself. I stared at the send button for what felt like an eternity. Clicking it was an irreversible act. It was detonating the bomb. Clicked it. The hours that followed were the longest of my life. I paced my room, a caged animal. Then my laptop chimed. New email. The sender was Eleanor Vance. Her reply was a beautiful, chaotic flood of shock, joy, and disbelief. "Oh my God, Nia. Is it really you? I have prayed for this day for 20 years. I never gave you up. Never. You were stolen from me. A woman dressed as a nurse took you for a routine test. And never came back. The hospital, the police, they treated me like a hysterical, grieving mother who was delusional. They closed the case. It was a nightmare I never woke up from. Please, can we talk? Can I see you? Your face, it's my face." Her words were like a healing balm on the raw, open wound of my existence. I was real. I was Nia. We exchanged numbers and spent the next hour on the phone, our conversation punctuated by tears and disbelieving laughter. She told me all about my father, David. They were still together, their shared grief a bond that had held them close for 2 decades. She told me about my grandparents, who lived just a few towns over and had kept a room for me all these years, a perfect time capsule of their hope. After I hung up, the dam of my composure finally broke. I was shaking with a potent cocktail of grief and fury. Armed with the truth, I walked downstairs. My parents were in the kitchen, a tense, silent tableau. They saw the look on my face, the storm in my eyes. They knew the time for lies was over. "Her name is Eleanor Vance," I said, my voice shaking but crystal clear. "My name is Nia. I was born on October 12th. I was stolen from City Central Hospital." Sarah let out a choked sob and sank into a kitchen chair, her face ashen. Michael's carefully constructed composure just crumpled, his face a mask of defeat. "We didn't know," Michael whispered, his voice raspy. "Not for sure." "Don't lie to me," I hissed, the sound foreign and venomous coming from my mouth. "Not anymore." And then the whole sordid story came tumbling out. Their desperation for a child, their years of failed fertility treatments. They met a facilitator through a shady lawyer who promised off-the-books private adoptions for a hefty price. $50,000. He gave them a baby, me, along with a forged birth certificate and fake surrender documents. "We knew it was shady," Sarah wept into her hands. "But we were so desperate. We chose to believe him. We had to believe him." "But you suspected," I said coldly, my gaze locking on Michael. "That's why you hid the photo. That's why you were so terrified of me searching." Before he could answer, Another piece of the puzzle slammed into place in my mind. The name of the law firm from the news article. Miller, Dane and Associates. The firm that represented the hospital. I saw your old resume once when I was helping you clean your office. You were a junior associate there, weren't you? Right around the time I was born. Sarah's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face a canvas of confusion. What? Michael, what is she talking about? Michael stared at me, his face a ruin. The final mask had fallen away, revealing something far more monstrous beneath. We didn't know for sure, he repeated weakly, but his eyes told a different story. You knew, I said, the words like ice. You worked for the firm that handled the hospital's legal issues. You must have heard about the hysterical mother and the missing baby. You didn't just stumble into a shady adoption. You saw an opportunity. You knew there was a stolen baby, a case that was going cold, and you used your position to find the man who could get her for you. You didn't just buy a baby. You targeted me. Sarah let out a horrified gasp, staring at her husband as if seeing him for the first time. Michael, is that true? He couldn't meet her eyes. He just stared at the floor, his silence a confession. It was Sarah who finally spoke, her voice choked with shame. The jokes, she whispered. It was a defense. A horrible, twisted way to make it seem like your past didn't matter. If we could turn your origins into nothing, then we could pretend there wasn't a real mother out there, grieving for her stolen child. We were trying to erase her. We were trying to erase what he did. It was monstrous. I know it was. Monstrous. That was the word. Sarah had built her happiness on another woman's trauma. But Michael had been the architect of it. The 72 hours were up. The bomb had gone off, and the blast had leveled my entire world. Section 6. The Aftermath and Resolution. That evening I packed a bag. Called Eleanor. She and my father, David, drove 2 hours without a moment's hesitation. The second I saw their car pull into the driveway, I ran out the front door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look back. There are no perfect words for a reunion 20 years in the making. There was just the raw, overwhelming, beautiful power of a 20-year-old hug. I felt my mother's arms wrap around me, and it was like a piece of my soul I didn't even know was missing finally slotted into place. I looked at my father, and I saw my own smile reflected back at me. In their faces I saw home. The days that followed were a dizzying, emotional whirlwind. I met my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. They welcomed me with open arms, tears, and 1,000 stories. They showed me my room, untouched for 2 decades, filled with toys and clothes they had bought for me, a time capsule of their unwavering hope. I learned my full name was Nia Simone Vance. I learned I had my grandmother's artistic talent and my father's stubborn streak. I wasn't a blank page. I was a rich, complex story woven from generations of enduring love. Then came the hard part. Justice. Eleanor and David had filed a police report the day I was taken. The case was cold, but it had never been closed. My reappearance, confirmed by a DNA test, blew it wide open. Reporting Sarah and Michael, especially Michael, meant destroying the lives of the only parents I had ever known. But staying silent felt like a profound betrayal of my mother and the 20 years of agony she had endured. In the end, the choice was clear. We went to the police and gave them everything. An investigation was launched, which quickly uncovered the illegal adoption ring. Michael's role as a lawyer who used his knowledge to facilitate the crime made his situation far more severe. He and Sarah both faced legal proceedings. I didn't attend the hearings. Seeing them felt like it would shatter me. I felt no triumph in their downfall, only a deep, hollow sadness for the family I thought I'd had. It's been a year since those 72 hours. Go by Nia now. Feels like me. Feels like coming home. But I am also Amara. Carry both names, both histories inside me. I am the girl who was raised on a foundation of terrible lies, but also a certain kind of love, however flawed and criminal it was. And I am the daughter of a woman who stared into a void of grief for 2 decades and never once gave up hope. My identity isn't one or the other. It's the complex, messy, and beautiful synthesis of both. I have an incredible, healing relationship with my birth family. I'm also in therapy, trying to untangle the knots of gratitude and resentment, of love and betrayal. Forgiveness. I'm not ready for that word. Can I forgive Sarah for her complicity and her weakness? Can I forgive Michael for his monstrous calculation? For building their happiness on my mother's deepest sorrow? For all the cruel jokes designed to keep me locked in the dark? I don't know if I ever will. But maybe forgiveness isn't the point. The point is truth. My whole life, they had mocked my past as a void. But my past was never nothing. It was a story of profound love, unimaginable loss, and incredible resilient strength. It was never their story to mock. It was mine. And now, finally, I'm the one telling it. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, comment below, leave your like, and share this video with others.